Developing right now on Morning News Now, the shutdown showdown on Capitol Hill now dragging on into a third week after Senate lawmakers reject a spending bill to reopen the government for the 11th time. Now both Republicans and Democrats blaming each other for one of the longest shutdowns ever.
The Democrats are making some very costly history here. They're decrying the situation that they themselves created. This has always been about the spectacle.
Democrats from the very beginning have been crystal clear and consistent. Cancel the cuts, lower the costs, save health care.
Meanwhile, a legal victory for the Trump administration over the deployment of National Guard troops to Portland. We will bring you the latest. A potential tragedy averted at one of the world's busiest airports. Authorities in Atlanta arrest a man after finding an assault rifle and ammunition inside his truck parked outside the Atlanta airport. How the man's family helped police track him down. Plus, avoiding allergies, a new food safety study shows a double-digit drop in kids with common food allergies, with the results linked in part to updated guidelines. What parents need to know. And you could call it a killer obsession. True crime stories taking over movies, TV, and social media. But experts warn some people could be taking their interest too far, how it could impact our mental health. Lots of those true crime podcasts are very popular. Good morning. Thank you so much for being with us on a Tuesday. I'm Savannah Sellers. Joe's off this morning, so it's just us. We're going to start with day 21 of the government shutdown, which still appears to have no end in sight. Yesterday, the Senate failed for the 11th time to pass a funding bill that would reopen operations. Meanwhile, millions of Americans are about to feel the impact. The SNAP program that helps more than 41 million people get food on the table is set to run out of money at the end of the month. Many federal workers now about to miss their second paycheck. And with no progress on health care negotiations, Americans who buy insurance through the Affordable Care Act will see their future premiums skyrocket when open enrollment begins so soon here. That's on November 1st. Well, as the stalemate between Democratic and GOP leaders stretches on, a White House official tells NBC News that Senate Republicans will have lunch in the Rose Garden with President Trump today as a, quote, thank you for sticking together. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Julie Sirkin is live in Washington to break it all down. Julie, good morning. A lot going on here. Later this week, the Senate also expected to vote on a bill that would pay federal employees who are still required to work during this shutdown. I mentioned Friday. That's when a lot of workers are going to miss that second paycheck. What else do we know about this bill and sort of this carve out?
Yeah, Savannah, not only the second paycheck, but the first full paycheck since the shutdown began. Last time they got paid at least a little bit before the shutdown really began in earnest. This bill that the Senate is poised to take up later this week is from Republican Senator Ron Johnson, and Republicans are really trying to blunt the chaos that has been created with the government closure for this long. By the way, it is already the longest full government shutdown in history. The thing is, though, Democrats that I'm talking to unlikely to vote for that, in part because they feel like they're just handing over more money to the White House, to Russ Vought, the White House budget director, and already Democrats have really negated everything the White House has done in terms of furloughing workers, in terms of laying off some of those workers. So certainly this is still a standoff between Republicans and Democrats. Some piecemeal measures like paying troops and paying others are starting to make their way through the chambers, but so far it's just a staring contest.
Julie, we know a big thing at the heart of this debate between both sides here, Democrats and Republicans, is health care. And a lot of people are pointing to this November 1st date as like this pivotal point that could potentially help end the shutdown, because that is when open enrollment starts for people who get their health insurance through the government, through the Affordable Care Act. They're going to see those health care premiums increase by a lot, and this is this major wedge here. With just a handful of days left, is there any sense that either side is feeling the pressure to come to some sort of deal, or that November 1st, when this really starts to impact a broader swath of Americans, that could be a turning point?
Certainly that's something that sources are talking about, because the real wedge here, as you pointed out, especially for Democrats, is over health care. It's over those expiring Affordable Care Act subsidies. And this is really what they've been saying all along. So when Americans are starting open enrollment, when they're choosing their insurance plans for next year, especially if they're in the individual marketplace, and they see their premiums spiking for next year, Democrats' calculations are, okay, maybe then Republicans will seriously want to negotiate and come to the table. But so far, Republican leadership, including the president, are saying the same thing. They're saying, look, we'll have this conversation, but first Democrats need to reopen the government. Some people I'm talking to, Savannah, say this could stretch weeks beyond that. There's already talk of writing another short-term funding bill to extend the deadline past November 21st. That's when the current Republican funding bill goes to. So this is a stalemate and a staring contest that really has no end in sight. The 11th attempt to reopen the government yesterday failed.
Julie, something else, the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue here I want to ask you about before we let you go. These videos, it's just sort of surprising, kind of interesting to see construction crews starting to demolish part of the east wing of the White House. This is part of the president's plan to build a new ballroom. We've heard quite a bit about this. It comes up the president insisted the project would not interfere with the current building. What changed? What's the reaction in Congress? How are people feeling about this?
Republicans aren't talking about it much, which is not surprising. Democrats are questioning the intent of this project. They're saying there's other things to worry about. Of course, we are in a government shutdown, and this construction project is taking place, which will take years, by the way. The president did speak about it yesterday. He was holding an event for the LSU team, and he had some state lawmakers in there, including Speaker Johnson, and he kind of joked and said you might hear the construction going on, but this is something the president has been extremely proud of. You see those images on your screen. They were a little bit shocking to see, because the president, as you point out, did say that it would not touch the White House. He said he loves the White House so much he would not do anything to demolish parts of it. But there you see the East Wing being torn down, at least partially, to build this ballroom that will hold 999 people. It is privately funded, Savannah. That's what the president has said all along, by businesses, by private donors, and himself. $250 million project to host lawmakers, state visits, and other officials. So certainly the president, the administration pushing ahead with this. In the past, it has taken an act of Congress. This time, the president signing an executive order to do some renovations on the White House.
All right, Julie Sirkin covering a lot for us. Thanks for starting us off. Well, in a legal victory for President Trump, a federal appeals court has cleared the way for the deployment of National Guard troops into Portland, Oregon, despite opposition from state and local leaders. In a 2-to-1 ruling yesterday, the court sided with the Trump administration. The majority ruling said that in ordering the deployment, it was likely that the president, quote, lawfully exercised his statutory authority. The decision pauses a lower court order that had temporarily blocked the deployment. Well, the Trump administration has argued that troops are needed to help protect a federal immigration and customs enforcement facility from protesters. That is something, though, that local leaders say is an exaggeration. For more, let's bring in NBC News senior justice reporter Ryan Riley. Ryan, good morning. Thanks very much for being with us. So in reading about this decision, it sounds like different pictures are being painted to describe the situation on the ground in Portland, where people have been protesting outside that ICE facility since the end of September. Talk through this ruling with us and tell us what the immediate impact is.
Yeah, so the lower court judge found that Donald Trump was basically basing his opinions, and this was something that he made a comment to NBC News about, on what he was seeing on the news, what he was seeing on Fox News. And some of that footage was very old, so it was months old, so it wasn't actually representing what was happening on the ground. More recently, as you see here in this footage, protesters have tried to make a point, try to point out what they see as the ridiculousness of the reaction from the government by dressing up in these costumes and creating this sort of spectacle that is meant to sort of chip away at this notion that that this is a war zone. Remember, this is only affecting, a very limited part of the city overall. And even in the ruling that we saw from the appeals court, they said that, the president may be exaggerating the extent of this, but is entitled to more deference in his decision-making process. But, that they may be exaggerating the extent of the problem on social media, but that does not change the other facts that provide a colorable basis to support the statutory requirements for him to actually go about deploying here.
Ryan, meanwhile, we're also learning about plans to keep National Guard troops stationed at the nation's capital. This is information that came out as part of the D.C. Attorney General's lawsuit against the Trump administration, challenging their deployment. Huge theme here is how much these deployments keep ending up in courtrooms. What are we learning about this one?
Yeah, some viewers might forget, but there's still this deployment in D.C. on a regular basis. You see them sort of every day mulling around near metro stations and whatnot, and sort of walking the streets. But what this litigation shows in the discovery process is that a high-level official was telling his troops to essentially get ready for the winter, and then after that even extend perhaps into the summer, because there's all of these events for the 250th anniversary of the country coming up next summer. summer, America 250. So that is the sort of idea, is that he thought that this was probably going to extend that far down the line, Savannah.
Ryan, I do also want to ask you about another case you've been reporting on. We've talked a lot about here. Former FBI Director James Comey. He's fighting to dismiss the criminal charges that were brought against him by the Trump administration last month. He's pleaded not guilty to 2 felony charges. That's for making a false statement and for obstructing a federal proceeding. He's arguing that this case was politically motivated, that the prosecutor wasn't properly appointed. Walk us through what's happening here and what we may see come of this.
Yeah, so those 2 filings came yesterday. We were expecting them to come from James Comey, and one of them makes the case that this was a vindictive prosecution, showing all of these tweets that Donald Trump has sent about James Comey and all these messages that he sent publicly. The public targeting of his enemies is a common theme here, and they say that this is all part of his sort of vengeance campaign. But also they're challenging the person who was appointed to this position to begin with, Lindsay Halligan, who was a personal lawyer for Trump. She was formerly an insurance attorney. Critically, she has 0 prosecutorial experience. The first time that she ever acted in that role was when she stepped in to secure these grand jury proceedings against James Comey and in the Letitia James case. So she does not have that history, and they are arguing that she is unlawfully appointed. That could have ripple effects across the country, because there's a number of these U.S. attorneys who were put in this position using some unique maneuvering from the Trump administration here, Savannah.
All right, Ryan Riley, thank you very much. Well, Amazon says it has resolved the issue that caused that major global outage with its massive cloud hosting service. It's called AWS. Yesterday, millions of people around the world were unable to use thousands of popular apps and websites. We're talking everything from airlines to banks. And get this, some businesses reported doing things the old-fashioned way with pen and paper. NBC News business and data correspondent Brian Chung has our details.
Well, it's a humbling reminder of just how fragile our IT infrastructure is around the world, with an outage at Amazon seemingly affecting every industry in every corner of the world. From United Airlines to Apple to Slack, a long list of companies all going dark for periods of time amid a massive worldwide outage.
Canva is down. Adobe Express is also experiencing some problems.
A global debacle traced back to one company, Amazon. Not the company's e-commerce business, but its cloud services, responsible for hosting the data of some of the largest companies in the world. From Snapchat,
guys, what is going on with Snapchat?
To Venmo.
Money is in there, but Venmo is down.
Students left in the dark as classroom software went down. Small businesses like the True Grit Cafe in Colorado having to take it back to pen and paper to take orders.
We're taking handwritten credit card information down and hope that we don't transpose the numbers out.
It even impacted Amazon's own e-commerce site. The trouble began overnight, with Amazon acknowledging increased error rates. By early morning, the company claimed that the issue had been fully mitigated. But by midday, Amazon said that customers still continue to experience increased error rates. Experts say it doesn't look like a hack.
When the source is quickly and easily discovered, it usually points to an accident or a misconfiguration rather than some type of attack.
And we should mention that NBC News did reach out to Amazon for comment on the specific reason for why this happened. Was it the result of some hack? Amazon did not respond to that request for comment. But we should note that Amazon has a massive market share in the cloud computing space. By one measure from Synergy Research, they say that Amazon AWS has about 30% of the cloud computing market. That is by far the largest share compared to their next competitors, which are Microsoft Azure as well as Google, meaning Amazon continues to command a strong hold of the cloud computing market. Back to you.
All right, Brian Chung, thank you so much. Well, officials in Atlanta are praising the family members of a convicted felon for stepping forward and thwarting his alleged plans to carry out a mass shooting at the airport. NBC News national correspondent Aaron Gilchrist has the details from Hartsfield-Jackson Airport.
Investigators say the suspect's family reached out to police in Cartersville, Georgia, about 50 miles away from the airport where the suspect lives, and they were able to relay that information from the family to Atlanta police along with a photo within just minutes.
How are you?
This body cam video shows the moment police say a potential tragedy was averted.
Put your hands behind your back.
Atlanta police officers detaining 49-year-old Billy Joe Cagle, who officials say threatened to shoot up the busiest airport in the world.
This individual did have a semi-automatic weapon, and this individual was mentally challenged. And when you have those combinations together, it can turn out to be deadly.
Surveillance video shows Cagle parking his pickup truck right outside Hartsfield-Jackson Airport's South Terminal. Once inside, he's seen walking right up to a TSA checkpoint.
He seemed to be very interested in the TSA check-in area, which you can see was heavily crowded with travelers.
Authorities say they were tipped off about what Cagle was up to from his own family members.
Cartersville Police Department was alerted by the family of Mr. Cagle that he was streaming on social media, that he was headed to the airport, in their words, to shoot it up.
After receiving that call from Cagle's family, officers in Atlanta canvassed the area. Less than 15 minutes later, police had the 6'3", 320-pound suspect in custody. Authorities believe Cagle was headed back to his truck to get an assault rifle, which had 27 rounds of ammunition. He was unarmed when he was taken into custody. Authorities grateful to the officers who spotted Cagle and those who said something.
27 or more lives could have been lost.
Cagle is facing several charges, among them making terroristic threats and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. Back to you.
All right, Aaron, thank you so much. Wow. Well, while that scary situation in Atlanta was on the ground, our Tom Costello reports there have been several new alarming aviation incidents that have people on edge.
From an onboard fire to a plane crash and shattered cockpit windscreen, a busy Monday for aviation investigators. In Hong Kong, an Emirates Air 747 cargo plane arriving from Dubai lost control after landing, crashing through a fence and striking a security vehicle before sliding into the sea. All 4 aircrew members rescued, but 2 people in the car were killed. Meanwhile, over China, fire and smoke poured from an overhead bin after Air China says a lithium-ion battery spontaneously ignited during a flight to Seoul. Flight attendants and passengers smothered the fire as the pilots made an emergency landing in Shanghai. No injuries, but underscoring the global risk posed by lithium-ion batteries and power banks overheating and catching fire. In the U.S., the FAA reports 62 incidents this year through September.
People just need to understand the risk associated with those, and in particular, power banks.
Investigators also looking into the shattered windshield at 36,000 feet on a United flight diverting to Salt Lake. Analysts say possibly due to a heating element in the glass. The pilot's arm cut and bloody. Also at this hour, we're watching airport delays nationwide. Since the government shutdown, the FAA has reported an increase in controllers calling out sick as they work without pay. Back to you.
All right, Tom, thank you so much. I was in an airport yesterday, can confirm it was a mess. Well, rainstorms and strong winds are in store for the Midwest and the area that's south of Lake Erie. Let's get more details with your Morning News Now weather. Angie Lassman's here in studio with us. Hi, Angie. Good morning.
Hi, Savannah. Good morning to you. Of course, this weather doesn't help with any air travel that folks are getting into this morning across parts of the Great Lakes, the Midwest, even the interior Northeast. Those are going to be all the bumpy spots that we see as the day goes on. But you'll notice some of that heavy rain that's kind of working across Michigan and stretching back into parts of the Midwest. We also have some of this rain draped across parts of New England. This storm system going to bring us the heavy rain, the potential for storms, and also those strong winds. Notice gusts up to 55 miles per hour are likely. We've got wind advisories up places like St. Cloud, Pierre, Bismarck, down to Waterloo, all included in that here as we got through our morning hours. Here's the system that we're watching specifically. Notice this one is going to kind of taper off and take most of the rain with it for folks across parts of northern New England. But we've got this upper level low that's kind of spinning right around the Great Lakes, and that's ushering in some of these showers and thunderstorms. And of course, those gusty winds that I mentioned. Can't rule out the potential for some small hail as well across this region through the day today. We'll see some of these showers rotate into New England for tomorrow, so it'll be a little unsettled for folks there. It's going to remain breezy and cool for much of the Northeast here as we get into your day tomorrow. So it's the umbrellas, it's the jackets. You're going to need all of that as you get out the door and prepare. By the time it's all said and done, we'll pick up a little rain in some spots. The highest amounts are going to be downwind of Lake Erie. You can see 2 to 3 inches in some spots and across parts of the upper peninsula of Michigan. Meanwhile, we're still, of course, about a month away from the end of hurricane season, and we're watching one area of potential development. We've got tropical disturbance 98L, and we're going to likely see this system become a tropical storm Melissa, specifically, likely later today. Now, We're going to watch for impacts to the Caribbean, Hispaniola. Folks across those regions are going to have to keep a close eye on that. Cuba, etc. We're going to watch likely for this system to kind of take a turn here as we get through the next couple of days, but still some uncertainty with it in those forecast model tracks that we'll watch in the coming days, Savannah. But even still, a good reminder that hurricane season is not over just yet.
No, it's not. But it's been
relatively quiet. Yeah.
Jinx, which is
Knock
great.
on wood.
All right, Angie, thanks so much. See you in a little bit.
You got it.
Well, there's much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, Roblox under fire. The popular gaming platform now facing a criminal investigation. Florida's Attorney General says the app puts kids at risk. But first, after the break, an update in the search for a group of thieves behind that daring heist at the world-famous Louvre Museum. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Vice President J.D. Vance is in Israel this morning in an attempt to shore up the ceasefire in Gaza, which appears to be on shaky ground. The visit comes after Gaza's health ministry said 13 Palestinians were killed in the past 24 hours in Israeli attacks. And before that, on Sunday, dozens of Palestinians were killed in a new wave of Israeli strikes, according to Gazan officials. Meanwhile, we have new NBC News reporting. Hamas has violently sought to reassert its authority over the Gaza Strip in the wake of Israel's partial withdrawal, even though the disarmament of Hamas is a key stipulation in this ceasefire agreement. NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley joins us now from Tel Aviv. Matt, good morning. So let's start with this group that is there to try to get this back to a steady place. Vice President J.D. Vance joining President Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff, his son-in-law Jared Kushner. They arrived in Israel yesterday. They were key figures in getting this done in the first place. We understand they met with Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday. Do we know what came of that meeting and what role Vance might play now?
Yeah, I mean, lots of diplomatic firepower here in Israel and all of these big guns trying to silence the guns in Gaza. That is the agenda. It's really the only topic of conversation. We haven't actually gotten much of a formal readout from what we heard from Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff after they met with Netanyahu. They also met with the family members, or they met with actually some of those hostages that they were so instrumental in getting released after 2 years. There is, as you can see, a frenzied, desperate effort to try to prevent Israel from going all in again in the war in the Gaza Strip, and that's why they're working this angle. We can presume that they're also trying to get the Qataris on board to prevent Hamas from escalating their fight, should this escalate any further. But this is really a desperate effort to save a ceasefire that has so far silenced the guns over Gaza and halted the rise in death that we've seen over the past 2 years. So this is something that the Trump administration, as you can see, is very much invested in.
Matt, as we just mentioned, there's been these new attacks by Israel, and they've also been condemned by Qatar. What happened exactly here? What are these repeated ceasefire violations as Qatar sees it? What is the latest on the ground and Israel's justification for these strikes?
Well, the Israelis have said that there are no fewer than 5 separate incidents in which either, they said, Hamas militants were either firing over the so-called yellow line at Israeli military targets and military personnel. The yellow line is where the Israelis were supposed and have withdrawn to as part of this 20-point plan that turned into this ceasefire deal. Now, Hamas has denied that they were doing this and said that Israel was just creating what they said were flimsy pretexts, basically, to restart the fighting. So there's kind of a he said, she said situation on the ground in the Gaza Strip, but one that is extremely dangerous because it could end up abrogating this treaty that has been such a major effort by the men who are now here in Israel trying to rescue it.
And Matt, on the other side of that, I know you've done some reporting here about Hamas, their continued military capability, while diminished, still existent, and sort of this this violence that we've seen from the group. That again, the key stipulation in this ceasefire is disarmament. What's happening there?
That's right. Disarmament is a big question, and nobody knows exactly even what it means. The definition of disarmament hasn't even really been arrived upon by these different negotiators. Now, I spoke with a bunch of people who are in the Israeli security establishment or who are consulting with them, and they all told me that basically Hamas is very much down, but not out. but they still have some capabilities. And really all they need, as we've seen over the past couple of days, are a few RPGs, these rocket-propelled grenades that you put on your shoulder, and some light weapons to cause a lot of problems that could send the whole Gaza Strip reeling back toward outright war. Now, one of the success stories that the Israelis point to is the dismantling of Hamas's long-range rocket capabilities, the rockets that they would use to extend their power and fire into Israel proper across that Gaza border. But one of the things that they haven't done, and one of the things that actually Israel was doing when they were attacked by, they said, Hamas, was the dismantlement of Hamas's enormous tunnel network. Now, people who are close to the Israeli security establishment say that really only 20 to 30%, and this is an estimate, of Hamas's tunnels have actually been destroyed so far. Now, we've heard from the Israeli Minister of Defense saying, basically, disarmament to them means getting rid of all these tunnels. So, Savannah, as you can imagine, that's an enormous logistical issue in the midst of all of this tension and near outright war.
Matt Bradley covering a lot for us this morning. Thank you very much. Well, in Paris, police are still on the hunt for 4 suspects who staged a daring heist at the Louvre Museum over the weekend. This is not the first high-profile robbery, though, at the world's most visited museum. But now this is a race against the clock to recover those priceless jewels. Here's NBC News international correspondent Molly Hunter with the latest.
A shocking daytime heist that stunned the world. The urgent manhunt now underway for the thieves still on the run. Sunday morning, minutes after the Louvre Museum opened to the public, authorities say a truck mounted with an extendable ladder drove up to the south side of the museum.
The car drove right up here to the side of the Apollo Gallery. That ladder went straight up to the balcony. You can see it right there. The window is boarded up. They used grinders to break that window. The alarms were sounding, and they headed for the Apollo Gallery.
At 9:34 a.m., 2 thieves entered the Apollo Gallery, inside for just 4 minutes, according to the prosecutor's office. In this video, widely published in French media, you can see one of them wearing a high-vis vest. They snatched 9 items in all, dropping a diamond-encrusted crown on the way out.
The thieves came down the same ladder. There were motorbikes waiting, and they made their getaway through Paris traffic.
2 members of the team waiting on motorbikes, and by 9:38 a.m., they were gone. Experts say it's now a race against the clock before the gemstones are removed or cut up and sold. Outside the most visited museum in the world, disappointment.
To our disappointment, it was closed because of a break-in. This is like a movie scene.
Honestly, I'm obsessed with this heist.
French media report a leaked audit of security found that the Louvre has routinely tightened the security budget. And French authorities are beefing up security at cultural sites across the country. Molly Hunter, NBC News.
Well, new this morning, former French President Nicolas Sarkozy is now behind bars. NBC News international correspondent Claudia Lavanga joins us from Rome with our world news in 60 seconds. Claudia, good morning.
Good morning, Savannah. Well, that's right. Nicolas Sarkozy has become the first former president of France to go to jail. He was seen early this morning entering La Santé prison in Paris, where he will start serving a 5-year sentence for conspiring to fund his election campaign with money from the late Libyan leader Gaddafi. Now, on a post that appeared on his X account this morning, he wrote, "I'm an innocent man and feel deep sorrow for a France humiliated by a will for revenge." Let's go now to Japan, where Parliament elected Sane Takaichi as the country's first female prime minister. The appointment ended a 3-month political uncertainty that followed the Liberal Democratic Party's election loss in July and was made possible by a coalition between the LDP and the right-wing Japan Innovation Party, which are expected to pursue Takaichi's conservative and nationalistic views. Let's end this tour of the world in Britain, where a news special called Will AI Take My Job showed how AI could take our job, Savannah. The hour-long program aired on Channel 4 investigated how artificial intelligence is reshaping the workspace. But then at the end of the program, surprise, take a look.
I'm not real. In a British TV first, I'm actually an AI presenter.
Now, Savannah, Channel 4 said that they did this stunt to prove how audiences can be tricked into believing any content that they cannot verify. So the last question I have is, are you real and am I?
Can confirm I'm real, but whew, there's the future, Claudio. All right, thank you very much. Well, coming up, signs of progress when it comes to food allergies in children. New research shows a double-digit drop in cases. What parents need to know to keep their kids healthy. Also, unwelcome advice, why experts are sounding the alarm as more influencers open up about their mental health journeys. Your weekly check-in is next on Morning News Now. We're back with new medical research that could help prevent children from developing certain life-threatening food allergies. The study was published yesterday in the Pediatrics Journal and revealed a 36% drop in all food allergies in children under 3 years old from 2017 to 2020. Experts say the drop was thanks in part to national guidelines that were formally recommended in 2017. Those guidelines help parents safely introduce potential allergens like peanuts and eggs before children turn 1. For more on this study, let's bring in Dr. Scott Hadlin. He's the chief of adolescent medicine at Massachusetts General Hospital. Dr. Hadlin, good morning. Great to have you with us. I mean, some really incredible numbers here. Walk me through some of the highlights from this study. How does this work? The benefits of exposing young children to certain allergens early on?
Yeah, it's really amazing. I think back to when I first started training as a pediatrician, 15 years ago. We used to routinely counsel families stay away from peanuts because at that time we knew so many kids were having anaphylaxis, and we were really worried as pediatricians. We wanted to keep kids safe. Fast forward to 2015, a large landmark clinical trial comes out, shows actually that when you introduce peanuts early into a child's diet, that you can actually prevent allergies. And then those guidelines that you mentioned came in 2017. And so then what we saw, according to the study that was released yesterday that reported on what seems to be happening in pediatric practice, you see a drop in 43% in peanut allergies from the period of time before those guidelines are released to after those guidelines. And peanuts actually become less common of a food allergy than egg allergy in this study. And so it's really remarkable because it's a real instance of us thinking one thing to try to keep kids safe, then a study is done, it turns the science on its head. We respond as practitioners, and then you have this amazing outcome.
It really is pretty amazing. Okay, so parents, of course, should always consult their pediatrician before they start any type of introduction. But what are kind of like the basic guidelines to follow to make sure the way you're introducing foods like peanuts that we're discussing is safe and effective?
Yeah, that's right. Always talk to your pediatrician first because you want to make sure that your child is ready for some of these foods. But typically between the ages of about 4 to 6, you want to introduce sort of what we think of as age-appropriate types of food. So, for example, you wouldn't give a whole peanut to a young child because, a 4 to 6 month old might actually choke on that. Instead, you might take a little bit of peanut butter, introduce it into, breast milk or rice cereal or infant formula as a way to give them a small amount. You want to monitor for reactions, and then you want to continue to give that amount of peanut in sort of like increasing quantities in the days to come to sort of help prevent, the body from becoming sensitized to it, help the body develop sort of that tolerance. You also want to avoid skin contact with that potential allergen, which is really important.
You also said that the study found that eggs have overtaken peanuts as the #1 allergen in young kids. Did it shed light on why or what causes food to become like a more prominent allergen?
Right, yeah, that final point that I made about avoiding skin contact I think is really important. It seems to be that children who get exposed to allergens through their skin, so for example, if a child has eczema and the skin layer is broken down, and then they come into contact with peanuts through the skin, that the body will sort of perceive the proteins in that peanut as being a threat, and will start to develop allergies to them. But on the other hand, when we introduce allergens and proteins through the diet in this sort of controlled and measured way, the body can develop a tolerance to them and understand that those foods and those proteins are actually safe and that a child can tolerate them over time.
Really interesting stuff and so important for parents. Dr. Hadlin, thank you very much for joining me this morning. Great to see you.
Good to see you too.
Now let's get to our weekly mental health check-in. This week we are looking at a new study that may help explain why millions of us are hooked on those true crime shows and podcasts. Plus, researchers also reveal how a feature of ADHD can actually be a strength when it comes to creativity. Joining us now for more on these mental health headlines is one of our favorites, licensed marriage and family therapist, Dr. George James. Dr. James, always wonderful to have you with us. Great to see you. Let's start with this new study. This is from Psychology, this of Popular Media. about the sort of obsession that a lot of us feel with true crime stories, and then how that also can play out on social media. They found there was actually this danger of people like compulsively posting about cases they were following. And this, by the way, is like a whole subculture on the internet, right? People who sort of become these like at-home detectives on some of these cases, Doctor.
Yes, Savannah. You know, this true crime obsession is actually something that pulls people in. And we found that the more that these social channels make it available, people get really into it. I think a lot of us want a distraction, but the challenge with this is that sometimes people lose time, lose day, and they lose track of taking care of themselves. So if you're going to do it, take a break, maybe have something else that you can do. Don't be so into it that you lose sight of your own self and your own self-care.
All right, there you go. Good reminder. All right, next I want to ask about an article in the Wall Street Journal. This is a really good one and a good topic. It talks about how social media influencers are sort of like touting their antidepressants. The headline here, girl, take your crazy pills. On one hand, there's like praise to be had here, right? Destigmatizing taking medications, being open about your mental health. But then there are also concerns that these drug side effects are sort of being glossed over, or maybe more people who then need to be are on them. What do you think? What's the right way to approach these drugs if you think you might benefit from them, and then also the right way to share about them?
Yeah, that's right, Savannah. This is really great in terms of saying, like, okay, medication can be helpful, especially dealing with some of our mental health conditions. But we also want to make sure that we're telling people all the different things, right? That you should contact your doctor, your provider, that you also want to be able to be aware of the side effects, which could be multiple things, from like stomach issues to impacting your sex drive to just even impacting your ability to sleep. So we want to keep people informed and make sure that you're working with someone, not just following the influencer. That's great to start, but then go to your doctor and hopefully also connect with a therapist so that you have all the different services to help you better in this situation.
Great advice. All right, finally, this one about this study that examines how people with ADHD can use it to their advantage, sort of, or what this can mean for creativity. What's the connection here, and how can somebody sort of harness this?
Yeah, I really love this, because so many times when we talk about ADHD, we talk about like the stigma that's attached. But one of the things that happens for many folks with ADHD is that their ability to let their mind wander and go to other places. Their mind will go to the next thing, and they can do it deliberately. And what we found in the study is that that also produces more creativity. And we need a lot of creativity and innovation in this world. So thank you for those who might be experiencing some ADHD, that you are more creative than most of us, and that is a great thing. So it's good to know that there's some good qualities that might come with things that we have a little bit of stigma connected to. That
is so true. Dr. George James, as always, thank you very much. See you soon. Well, coming up, driverless dangers. Waymo's robo-taxis now at the center of a safety investigation after alleged traffic violations near schools. We're back now with details about a criminal investigation being launched by Florida's Attorney General into the popular gaming platform Roblox. This comes after growing concern that the app does not safeguard children from online predators. NBC News senior national correspondent Stephanie Gusk has the story.
The children's gaming app Roblox put on notice by Florida's Attorney General.
Companies like Roblox have become breeding grounds for predators to get to and have access to our kids.
The AG announcing it will issue subpoenas to the company as part of a criminal investigation.
We've arrested over 1,000 child predators just this year, and many of these investigations lead right back to Roblox.
Among them, 17-year-old Christian Scriven, who pleaded not guilty to adult charges for allegedly convincing children as young as 8 years old to share sexually explicit images. On Roblox, users can chat with each other while they create and play games. According to the Florida's AG, predators often pose as children, sometimes luring victims by paying them with the in-game currency called Robux. The company says it is cooperating with the Florida investigation, adding that it prohibits the sharing of images and video, and it has advanced safety systems to help protect users and remove bad actors.
You sent a message and said, well, if I send you like $5 in the digital currency Robux, can you send me like just a selfie of yourself?
Steve, who asked that we not use his last name, says his 13-year-old son was targeted by a predator on Roblox.
And it got progressively worse and worse and worse from there. Before long, it was, well, I know where you live at because he found out our home address.
Steve is one of dozens of people around the country who have filed lawsuits against Roblox, accusing the company of not doing enough to protect children. Roblox wouldn't comment specifically on Steve's lawsuit, but said their policies are purposely stricter than many other platforms and said they limit chat for younger users.
It is on these apps. They found like a haven for this kind of thing to happen because anyone can be anyone they want to be.
And kids can be easily fooled.
Yes, absolutely.
Our thanks to Stephanie Gosk for that report. Well, for more on this investigation, I'm joined by NBC News legal analyst Angela Sanadella. Angela, good morning. So, this is obviously a hugely popular platform with children. Now, though, 64% of the user base is 13 or older, obviously. From 13 to 18, you're still a child. But I guess part of this question here, especially because we do know that there are quite a few safety features that can be turned on, maybe that parents need to understand exactly the extent to which these features could potentially protect their kids and really kind of understand them. So where does the responsibility fall between users and platforms when it comes to online safety?
So that is a great question. Now, there is this long-standing law in this country, Section 230, which means that platforms cannot be held responsible for the user-generated content that's on there. So, for example, YouTube cannot be held responsible for harmful, hurtful YouTube comments. But that said, obviously this is different because there are so many children on this platform. So all of these lawsuits, and there are a lot, there are lawsuits from parents, from states, and now this criminal subpoena, they are all trying to sidestep 230, and instead of holding Roblox responsible for actual content, they're trying to hold Roblox responsible for not having enough guardrails to protect children. So that argument is a little bit different legally. But now the problem with that is the people in our legal system who are really traditionally held responsible for the safety of their children, our parents, our schools, are people who are legally required to take care of the children. So now saying that the platform actually has to be legally required to take care of your children is the difficulty we are facing legally.
I want to read a little bit of what the platform, what Roblox has said in response to this. They say, while no system is perfect, our trained teams and automated tools continually monitor communications to detect and remove harmful content. We are committed to leading the industry in safety and transparency. What do you make of that response and how they do stack up industry-wise?
So look, they are certainly trying and they are at the forefront. Now, the issue with this, though, is that everybody from the government to the parents to the users, everyone who is suing knows that only Roblox knows how to best stop this problem. Only Roblox knows. And that's a difference in the tech industry between other industries. So often when you have a lawsuit or a criminal investigation, the government will say, you know what, you should do this differently to make changes to help people to stop creating harm. But in the tech industry, and this goes across all the other social media platforms too, the government doesn't know. Parents don't know.
Absolutely. This year alone, Roblox says they've made over 100 safety improvements to help protect users. One big thing, though, and this is something that is absolutely industry-wide, is age verification. I mean, because, like these things don't really kick in, these parameters, these guardrails, unless you're able to accurately say this person is 13, this person is 15. It's something that we've seen social media platforms struggle with. It's something that OpenAI says they're working to have their AI be able to detect itself, a ChatGPT, if it thinks just based on the way that a user is talking or asking questions that this person is below age. But this is tough stuff, and it impacts the whole industry. How do you deal with that?
It is really tough. So I will say, though, that there's so much progress being made on that forefront. However, there's also this huge issue regarding children's privacy, and especially with, for example, taking pictures and biometric data. This country actually has stronger laws preventing companies from taking children's data. So, for example, any sort of verification measure would require that, than protecting them from getting harmed.
All right. Some tough conversations we all need to have about what we want for kids. Angela, thank you so much. Great conversation. All right, let's move over to business news now. There is a new probe into some alleged safety concerns over Waymo's self-driving cars. NBC's Emily Lors joins us with that and other money news this morning. Hi, Emily. Good morning.
Hey, Savannah. Good morning. A federal investigation is putting Waymo, Alphabet's self-driving car company, under the microscope. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration is looking into about 2,000 of the company's robo-taxis after reports that they might not be following traffic laws. Waymo says it has already made improvements and has plans for even more software updates. And a big player has entered the AI scene. The startup Periodic Labs, which was founded by a co-creator of ChatGPT and a former Google scientist, has raised $300 million in seed funding. The company's goal? To use AI simulations and robotics to create materials that could power the next generation of energy-efficient tech. The team says the lab work is already underway. Meanwhile, inactive X handles, they are now up for grabs. The platform is launching a marketplace where premium subscribers can claim unused usernames, some for free and some selling for more than 7 figures. X says the marketplace is set to prevent bots and spam. And Savannah, I don't know about you, but I don't know what kind of an X handle is going to be worth more than 7 figures.
Oh my gosh, that is absolutely crazy. Interesting. All right, Emily, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Well, coming up on Morning News Now, helping the police by getting drunk.
Feels really weird getting drunk, like, with, like, cops all around you.
Abby, I need you to go have a double.
When we return, we're going to take you to Denver, where volunteers are having a few too many to help train new recruits. We're going to explain next. Stay with us. Finally this hour, police in Colorado who are training their new recruits to spot drunk drivers are turning to an unexpected teaching aid. Reporter Mark Salinger with KUSA, our affiliate station in Denver, has the details.
Back in college, someone once told me, hey, you can't drink all day unless you start in the morning.
Thank you.
They probably weren't envisioning this.
It feels really weird getting drunk, like, with, like, cops all around you.
Well before most bars even open.
It is 10:46 in the morning. I am now on my second drink.
Colorado State Patrol is slinging drinks like it's science.
Abby, I need you to go have a double.
I'm supposed to have 10 drinks.
Terry, I need you to go have a double.
Yeah, this is a lot earlier than I normally start drinking.
They call it a wet lab. Get a couple drinks in you, and it quickly turns into a bunch of people getting drunk in a conference room surrounded by state troopers.
It's not the vibe I normally go after.
Starting early. It's going to be a long day.
Don't worry. They volunteered for this.
It's not an open bar. This is a very controlled environment where we measure out every single drop that goes into these beverages.
The only way State Patrol can train their cadets to spot drunk drivers is to get people drunk.
You want to make sure that they are actually getting that experience of seeing what a drunk person is going to look like on the side of the road.
And so, they drink.
I'm feeling pretty good.
Definitely starting to feel it. Yeah, feeling good.
And it's only 12:30, and so we're in for a ride.
Until it's time for the test.
Oh, I'm going to feel so bad.
Cadets can't graduate.
Are these the new guys?
Those are the brand new cadets.
Okay, I'll act sober.
Until they know how to do field sobriety tests.
You want me to go all the way?
I just want you to imagine a straight line.
Okay.
So in a sense, yeah, it's kind of like we're back at school.
4, 5, 6.
Even if failing the test is part of the lesson.
8, 9. You guys can tell.
Our thanks to Mark Salinger for that report. What an interesting idea. All right, that's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now. Stay with us, though. Don't go anywhere because the news continues right now. Good morning, and thank you for kicking off your Tuesday with us. I'm Savannah Sellers. Joe's off today. Right now on Morning News Now, pressure and praise. Today marks 3 full weeks of a full government shutdown with no real end in sight. President Trump set to meet with top GOP lawmakers to thank them for, quote, holding the line on negotiations, while top Democrats dig in on the key sticking point of health care costs for millions. Meanwhile, everyday Americans still face the harsh reality of a government that is closed for business. We've got the latest. Also this morning, a historic facelift for 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Construction crews seen demolishing part of the White House's East Wing to make room for President Trump's massive $250 million ballroom, the biggest renovation in nearly a century. And lawmakers on Capitol Hill aren't keeping quiet about it. We will take you to Washington. Plus, Vice President J.D. Vance touching down in Israel this morning, all part of a U.S. show of force to ensure that fragile ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas holds, as each side accuses the other of breaching the deal and casualties continue to grow. More on what we can expect from his visit as the Trump-brokered pact hangs in the balance. And back home, some good news for your Thanksgiving dinner table this year. We'll dig into which major retailers are serving up the best deals on dishes and why it actually may cost you a little less green to get from point A to point B this holiday season. All good news as Thanksgiving now just a few weeks away. Isn't that crazy? Well, we're going to begin this hour with day 21 of the U.S. government shutdown. For the 11th time, the Senate failed yesterday to pass a bill that would reopen the government. So far, both sides have not made any progress toward ending the shutdown, and many federal workers are set to miss their second paycheck on Friday. NBC News senior Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles has the latest from Washington.
This is already the longest full government shutdown in American history. And at day 21, President Trump is hosting congressional leaders at the White House. But the lunch won't have anything to do with finding common ground with Democrats. Instead, the president plans to thank his GOP colleagues for holding the line.
Day 21 of the federal government shutdown, and already food banks across the country are bracing for an influx of need. Social safety net programs like SNAP are set to run out of money by the end of the month.
If those SNAP dollars get cut in half, that would mean that a local food center, food bank would have to quadruple their output just to meet that need.
Those same food banks not just preparing for people missing benefits, but also full-time federal workers who are on the verge of missing a second paycheck. Many of those workers still on the job at airports across America, leading to flight delays from air traffic controllers and TSA officers calling in sick. Federal workers at airports aren't the only ones not being paid. And this week, the Senate is planning to attempt to alleviate some of that pressure by passing a bill that would at least get paychecks for those federal workers who are still required to work.
It has become clear that Democrats' previous concerns had more to do with politics than with principle.
But Democrats continue to hold their ground, arguing any bill passed must consider health care reforms.
The ACA premium crisis is not a fix-it-later issue, like Republicans keep pretending it is. It's a fix-it-now issue.
Cancer survivor Kenny Capps gets his health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. If the subsidies lapse, he may be forced to go without coverage.
That could be twice what my mortgage payment is, which means that I'm going to have to start making decisions about what I pay.
Meanwhile, the shutdown continues and is on pace to break records. If it extends for more than 2 weeks, it will become the longest shutdown of all time. Some on Capitol Hill are bracing for that possibility.
We are shorthanded already with air traffic controllers, with TSA agents, keeping the airports safe and our flights safe. We cannot afford this nonsense.
Open enrollment for many Americans begins on November 1st, which means that Congress is running out of time to impact the cost of premiums in the new year. At this point, that deadline is not forcing the two sides to get in a room and solve this problem.
All right, Ryan Nobles, thank you very much. Well, demolition, as I mentioned, underway on the east wing of the White House as part of President Trump's new ballroom project. Construction crews began tearing down part of the building yesterday. And this marks the most significant change to the White House in nearly a century. NBC News senior White House correspondent Garrett Hake has more from the White House.
This morning, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue is under construction as crews begin building President Trump's White House ballroom, demolishing part of the historic East Wing facade to make room for the massive addition.
Right on the other side, you have a lot of construction going on.
The president, frustrated by limited space in the East Room, has repeatedly touted plans for a new ballroom to entertain large groups of guests.
They've wanted a ballroom for 150 years, and I'm giving that honor to this wonderful place.
In July, the Trump administration released these ornate renderings of the 90,000 square foot ballroom, an addition that would nearly double the footprint of the existing White House complex, with the president making this pledge.
It won't interfere with the current building. It'll be near it, but not touching it, and pays total respect to the existing building.
The East Wing has long been used by the First Lady and her staff, with several aides relocating their workspaces ahead of the demolition, according to an administration official. The White House says the ballroom, with an estimated $250 million price tag, will be financed by the president and private donors. Democratic lawmakers on social media blasting the ballroom build as, quote, out of touch and disgusting, while Republicans are largely shrugging it off.
I'm not much of a builder, but he's very proud of the ballroom.
It's the latest in a series of White House renovations ordered by the president, from gold accents in the Oval Office to paving a patio over much of the Rose Garden. While the current changes are the most significant in nearly a century, it's not the first time the People's House has been reinvented, from a complete reconstruction by President Harry Truman to a sweeping renovation by First Lady Jackie Kennedy.
I think this house will always grow and should.
Even Richard Nixon building the briefing room on top of an old indoor pool.
Now, the work continues here despite the government shutdown, since it's being paid for by private funds. The president views this ballroom, Savannah, as an important part of his legacy, leaving a physical stamp on the city of Washington itself. Savannah?
Garrett Haig, thank you so much. Well, Vice President J.D. Vance is in Israel this morning as part of a U.S. push to shore up the ceasefire in Gaza, which has been increasingly under threat over the past few days. NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley has the latest from Tel Aviv. Hi, Matt. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Savannah. So there's a lot of American diplomatic firepower here in Israel at the moment. It's all amidst concerns that continuing violence could scuttle that hard-won ceasefire in the Gaza Strip.
Today, the U.S. pulling out its biggest diplomatic guns to silence the Gaza, where the death toll is climbing nearly 2 weeks into a ceasefire. Vice President J.D. Vance and his wife Usha arrived in Israel today, joining top Trump envoy Steve Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, who met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and several freed hostages.
We made a deal with Hamas that, they're going to be very good, they're going to behave, they're going to be nice, and if they're not, we're going to go and we're going to eradicate them.
Israel accuses Hamas of repeatedly violating the ceasefire by attacking Israeli troops throughout Gaza, killing 2 Israeli soldiers. Health officials in Gaza said Israel's strikes have killed dozens of Palestinians, including at this camp for displaced people. The ceasefire faces additional challenges. Israel has accused Hamas of violating the deal by withholding the bodies of 15 slain hostages in Gaza. Kushner has said he believes Hamas is acting in good faith. The group had warned that it would struggle to recover the bodies amid Gaza's destruction. Last night, Hamas handed over another, the body of Tal Haimi, who was killed on October 7th. Among those who remain is 22-year-old American-Israeli Omer Nutra from New York. The Israeli soldier died in Hamas captivity.
Do you worry that the events of the last 24 hours could really jeopardize his body coming home?
We're extremely worried. We feel that the ceasefire is fragile.
His parents, Ronan and Orna, say they're desperate for closure.
He's still our boy. He will always be our boy. And we need to give him a proper burial, a place where we can go and cry and mourn and start our healing process as well.
Hamas has denied that they violated Trump's ceasefire and said again this morning that they're committed to the ceasefire agreement and retrieving those remaining bodies. Savannah?
All right, Matt Bradley, thank you very much. Well, this morning, we are following the fallout from yesterday's massive global internet outage. You probably felt this. Amazon says it's now resolved the issue that took its cloud hosting service, it's called AWS, offline. It led to millions of reported outages and it impacted popular websites, Venmo, Snapchat, Alexa, all that kind of stuff. NBC News business and data correspondent Brian Chung has been following this one for us. He joins us now in studio. Brian, good morning.
Good morning. Well, Amazon, at least as of now, has signaled the all clear after that massive outage that disrupted school and work across the country. And while experts say this doesn't appear to be caused by hackers, rather, it's another cautionary tale of just how fragile the nation's IT infrastructure really is.
After a 15-hour ordeal, the internet is now back online. An issue at Amazon Web Services took down a slew of popular websites used by millions of Americans every day.
Guys, AWS is down, which is making my Canvas down, and this is midterm review week.
From students to office workers, nearly everyone impacted at the beginning of a busy week.
My whole day was planned to get through a load of work.
Let me know why every single app is not working.
Among other companies experiencing disruptions, social media platforms like Snapchat, the crypto exchange Coinbase, and the money-sharing site Venmo. Plus, the apps for giant chains like Starbucks and McDonald's paralyzed. The problem seeming to stem from a network connectivity problem at AWS, which experts said didn't quite look like a hack.
So when this core service went down, other Amazon services went down, and we had a cascading failure that led to all sorts of impact all around the internet.
As Amazon's engineers battled to fix the outage, it again underscored just how fragile the internet can be. It comes after last July's massive CrowdStrike glitch that locked up Microsoft computers worldwide. Small business owners like Tammy Tuttle forced to open her Ridgeway, Colorado cafe without its operating systems up and running, recording orders and payments the old-fashioned way, with pen and paper.
So are you basically flying blind right now because you can't connect to the internet?
Right. We've forgotten how to do it from the dark ages, so this changes every dynamic we know.
Amazon, which is thought to have a massive 1/3 of the total cloud computing market, says it has taken steps to help that system recover.
I'm wondering, what does this tell you that so many people use Amazon AWS? Is that a vulnerability for the overall internet infrastructure?
Right. When we put all of our eggs in a few very large baskets, when we have a failure like we did today, we see the consequences across the entire internet.
And as for Amazon, they say that they'll have what they call a post-event summary. It's basically just a report, Savannah, on exactly what happened here, because we did reach out to them and ask what was the reason for this. Was it the result of some sort of hack? They didn't respond to NBC's request for comment, but as we saw with that CrowdStrike Microsoft outage, remember last year when all those Microsoft computers got bricked?
Faces on all of our
Exactly. There was a report after the fact that gave us a lot more details, so that's the next step that we'll be looking for here.
Brian, obviously, I think everybody is familiar with Amazon at this point. They're used to probably getting multiple packages a day if their house is anything like mine, and might have been surprised to even know something that has to do with Amazon AWS could impact their ability to go on websites or to use something like their Alexa that they're very used to. Just how much of what we all do on the internet every day is controlled by Amazon?
A lot. And to your point, a lot of people are already familiar with how massive they are because maybe they shop at Whole Foods, maybe they order from Amazon on a regular basis, but it's actually their AWS product that is their most profitable part of their business. People don't realize that actually as of the last quarter, if you took all their international and also their domestic North America sales, it was only about $9 billion. They had $10 billion in profits just off of AWS. And there are some estimates that they have about 30% of the overall cloud market. That is by far the largest share of the market compared to their next competitors, which are Microsoft and Google. So it cannot be understated just how important Amazon is to the overall internet infrastructure.
And smart question there in your piece. How vulnerable does that leave us that one company controls so much of that space? All right, Brian, thank you so much. Well, police in Atlanta say they managed to prevent a potential mass shooting at the world's busiest airport. Authorities are now thanking the family of the suspect for immediately alerting them to his alleged plot. NBC News national correspondent Aaron Gilchrist has the details from Hartsfield-Jackson Airport.
Savannah, good morning. Police say a terrible tragedy was averted here with just minutes to spare. This airport sees more than 250,000 passengers each day, and investigators say their suspect wanted to hurt as many people as possible when he came here. The relatives who stepped in, who really acted on the concept of see something, say something, likely saved lives. I'm just here. What I heard. This police body cam video shows the moments before officers zeroed in on a man authorities say planned to shoot up the busiest airport in the world.
Put your hands behind your back, sir.
Police taking down 49-year-old Billy Cagle, 6'3", 320-pound suspect needing 2 sets of handcuffs. Cagle now facing several charges, including terroristic threats and possession of firearms by a convicted felon. Investigators say his family first alerted police in Cagle's hometown, telling them that he was live streaming details of his potential plot on social media, adding he was heading to Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson Airport to shoot it up.
The family stated that he was in possession of an assault rifle. What we didn't know is that Mr. Cagle had already arrived at the airport.
Surveillance video shows Cagle parking his pickup truck outside the airport's south terminal early Monday. Once inside, he's seen unarmed walking up to a TSA checkpoint.
He seemed to be very interested in the TSA check-in area, which you can see was heavily heavily crowded with travelers.
Authorities believe Cagle was headed back to his truck to retrieve a gun, an AR-15 assault rifle with dozens of rounds that was found in his back seat. But he was quickly stopped by officers on the lookout and armed with his photo.
A tragedy was indeed averted. There were 27 rounds that could have been fired from this weapon inside the airport.
A motive remains unclear, but officials believe Cagle's intent was to, quote, inflict harm to as many people as he could. Authorities thanking the suspect's loved ones for speaking up.
Family saw something and said something.
We're thankful to God and to good information and good intel and good people for this crisis being averted.
Now, police say they're working with the FBI to figure out how Cagle, a convicted felon, was able to obtain that deadly weapon. Authorities haven't revealed what the prior conviction was, and they say that Cagle does have mental health challenges. Savannah, back to you.
All right, Aaron Gilchrist, thank you so much. Wow, well, lake effect storms are expected south of Lake Erie today and tomorrow. We've got details on that and more with your Morning News Now weather. Angie Lassman, it is firmly fall, I think, in New York City. Not the fake fall anymore, right?
Firmly fall. Yeah, let's go with it, Savannah. I'll commit to that with you. We do have, of course, the cooler air that's in place, the breezier conditions, and some spots are dealing with the soggy conditions as well. Let's get you some details there because there's going to be an umbrella and a jacket in your future if you live across this region here over the next couple of days. Notice the heavy rain that's draped across essentially Ohio, stretching all the way back across the upper peninsula of Michigan, and then parts of Minnesota included in that as well. And we're kind of in and out of the shower activity and the gusty winds. We've still got some wind advisories up for parts of Minnesota, stretching down. Places like Waterloo is still included. We have ditched some of these alerts the farther west you look, but we're still expecting the potential for wind gusts over 50 miles per hour as the rest of the morning and even afternoon goes on. And here's why. We've got this big picture look at this system that's kind of working across parts of the Great Lakes. It's going to continue spinning there through the day today. So the rain, the potentially gusty winds, as well as a chance for hail, all on the table for folks that are going to be out and about across this region through the day today. And then we start to see it kind of shift a little farther to the east, and that spins in some of these kind of showers across parts of the interior areas of New England, the interior Northeast. We'll see some heavy rain, specifically downwind of Lake Erie, and pick up maybe 1 to 3 inches in some of those spots. So watching for the soggy forecast for some folks there. And meanwhile, across parts of the Atlantic, we're watching for the potential for a tropical storm to develop later today. Notice what our chances are, 100%. We're going to see this happen as the day goes on. It's just exactly when we'll finally get the National Hurricane Center to say that it has formed. It will be Melissa. That'll be the next name on the list. The good news is we're not looking at any impacts to the United States right now, but we've still got some uncertainty that we're going to watch for. The potential, though, for impacts Hispaniola, Cuba, that region across the Caribbean is possible. So still watching for that. Otherwise, Savannah, check out these temperatures. Remember when you said it was fall? 75 degrees in Richmond.
I said in New York.
For the southeast. We'll see kind of cooler air filter in for parts of the Great Lakes behind that system, though.
Selfishly only talking about where I live.
Yeah, well, you know, upper 60s to low 70s today. Might not need the jacket this afternoon.
I know, that's true. Jeez, I'm always wrong, Angie. Thanks so
It's okay.
much. All right, there's much more to come on this hour of Morning News Now, including the urgent race against time in France as police there hunt for the thieves who carried out that brazen daytime heist at one of the world's most famous museums, and the priceless items now in the wrong hands. First, though, after the break, President Trump's calls for a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine growing louder. And now he's gaining some vital support ahead of that upcoming summit with Vladimir Putin. We've got the latest next. Welcome back this morning. European leaders are backing President Trump's call for a ceasefire in the Russia-Ukraine war at current battle lines. Now, the president called for a truce on those present lines after meeting Ukraine's President Zelensky at the White House last Friday. Mr. Trump is now expected to meet face-to-face with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Hungary in the coming weeks. And that is a meeting that Zelensky says he would be willing to join if invited. NBC News international correspondent Keir Simmons joins us from Moscow. Keir, good morning. So European leaders that are supporting President Trump's call for this truce along those current battle lines. Is it something that we anticipate Russia would accept as maybe just a starting point, at least, for peace negotiations?
Well, the simple answer is no. We just heard from the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, who is saying, in simple terms, that it's not just about a ceasefire along the current contact line. It's also about the questions that Russia has been raising through these years. It says there is a genocide of Russian-speaking people in Ukraine. That's the way that Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister here in Russia, puts it. And he also says that it doesn't address the question of, as he puts it, Ukrainian neutrality from the West. It gets very, very complex, a three-dimensional jigsaw, really, in terms of the demands of both sides and the concerns of both sides. But certainly, I think that the chances that President Trump and President Putin are likely to meet, which looked like, which President Trump said was going to happen in Budapest. He said that just a few days ago. I think that looks less likely now after this call between the Secretary of State and the Foreign Minister here, because the Americans will have come away from that call, apparently, according to what Sergei Lavrov is saying publicly, with the clear message that the Russians are as determined as ever to stick to their maximalist goals. Just to describe one part of that, why it's difficult for Europe and Ukraine. If the Ukrainians are not going to want to agree to neutrality, that means no security support from America and Europe, because, of course, they would believe it would open the way to another attack by Russia in the future.
Keir, how's the Kremlin viewing this potential upcoming summit between Presidents Trump and Putin, and any chance they're open to having Zelensky join? Is it up to them, by the way?
Yeah, I don't think that President Zelensky sitting down with President Putin and President Trump is very likely at this stage. President Putin is quite simply not going to want that. He relishes being able to sit face-to-face with an American president without the Ukrainian leader there. And also what President Trump openly says, which is that, as he puts it, these two leaders, Putin and Zelensky, very much don't like each other, hate each other. I mean, he's right about that. President Putin absolutely does not want to find himself face-to-face with President Zelensky unless he absolutely has to.
Keir, we know Ukraine has been pushing for more U.S. weapons. In the meantime, Kyiv is especially wanting these U.S. Tomahawk missiles. Is that something the Trump administration is likely to supply right now?
Not at the moment. It's quite clear from what President Trump hasn't openly said, I'm not sending them. And by the way, if he does, then it will be paid for by Europe, as he describes it. But he hasn't said he will, so it's kind of on the fence right now. I mean, those missiles are extremely capable. They are long range, and there will be plenty of them. There are some European missiles which are similar, but the US has many of them. And so, for example, it would put Moscow, where I am now, in range of the Ukrainian missiles. That's not to say they would strike Moscow, but what I think they would do, though, is use it to try to target Russia's defense capabilities, its drone factories, as an example, perhaps. And I think that really would worry the Kremlin, does worry the Kremlin. That's why the Ukrainians say that it's that kind of a supply of munitions that they think would get the Russians to the table. I mean, I think the counter-argument to that is, so far, a terrible war, more than 1 million Russian casualties, according to the Ukrainians, and the Russians have not come to the table with any kind of proposal of a real compromise.
All right, Keir Simmons reporting from Moscow for us. Thank you very much. Well, this morning we have new details on how that brazen heist at the Louvre unfolded over the weekend. Investigators are expanding the search for the thieves who stole these priceless jewels in broad daylight as questions mount about what led to the massive security failure at the world's most visited museum. NBC News International correspondent Molly Hunter has the latest.
Good morning. The clock is ticking. Those thieves are still missing, and so are the jewels. Now, French authorities say they are chasing down every single lead. And one of the things that investigators are looking at this morning is whether that alarm system worked correctly.
This morning, the hunt is still on for the thieves and priceless missing items from the brazen daylight heist. This video is still the only image we've seen of the operation in progress. Widely shared by French media, a man in a high-vis vest, perhaps disguised as a maintenance worker, inside the lavish Apollo Gallery. Sunday morning's heist has captivated, well, everyone.
They're calling it like, the break-in of the century. I mean, it's something like out of, Danny Ocean and George. I didn't see George Clooney yet.
As questions mount about the massive security failure at the most visited museum in the world, a leaked audit report to French media finds that the Louvre routinely deprioritized security upgrades. The justice minister saying the whole incident gave France a deplorable image. as the prosecutor's office updated the exact timeline. Minutes after the Louvre opened on Sunday, a truck mounted with an extendable ladder drove up to the south side of the museum. Prosecutors now say the exact time was 9:34 a.m. Two thieves entered the Apollo Gallery inside for just 4 minutes. Americans Jacob and Holly Barker were inside the gallery at that very moment.
We heard the banging on the window. And at that point, it was almost like it sounded like construction. We weren't sure if somebody was trying to get in or out. We just knew that we didn't want to be there to find out.
The thieves snatched 9 priceless items, part of the Royal Napoleonic collection, but on their way out, dropping a diamond-encrusted crown, now a key piece of evidence.
The thieves came down the same ladder. There were motorbikes waiting, and they made their getaway through Paris traffic.
By 9:38 a.m., they were gone. Experts say it's now a race against the clock, and the chances of finding intact pieces diminish with every hour.
It's absolutely a race against time. It sounds like an old adage that the first 48 hours are key. Gems could literally go anywhere. They're so hard to trace.
Now, that leaked audit security report criticizes the Louvre for not updating its security measures and actually alleges that 1/3 of the galleries didn't have enough surveillance cameras. The good news, though, is that museum right behind me is going to be back open to the public and some very happy tourists here by tomorrow. I'll send it back to you.
All right, Molly Hunter. Wow, new details there. Thank you so much. Well, coming up, a new warning for people using some of those popular jobs online. When we come back, how you can spot the too good to be true scams that are flooding feeds on LinkedIn, ZipRecruiter, and more. And all of them are out for your most sensitive information, but we've got your back. That's up next. We are back now with a closer look at what's making news in the world of politics this morning, starting with a new legal battle brewing over the issue of guns. NBC News politics reporter Megan Leibowitz joins us with more. Hi, Megan. Good morning.
Hey, Savannah. Good morning. Yeah, let's kick things off at the Supreme Court, where the justices decided yesterday to take a look at whether a gun law violates the Second Amendment. Now, the law in question bans frequent drug users from being allowed to have guns. And it's actually the same law that Hunter Biden was convicted under last year, though he was later pardoned by his dad. Now, as the case heads to the Supreme Court, the Trump administration is defending the law after an appeals court ruled against it. Next, let's go to the redistricting fight, which is still playing out across the country. Now, Democrats are looking into a redistricting push in Maryland and Illinois. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has talked with Maryland Governor Wes Moore, as well as members of the Illinois and Maryland delegations, about potential redistricting efforts. That's according to a source familiar. Now, big picture here, the members of Congress from these states are overwhelmingly Democrats. There's only 1 Republican member in Maryland and 3 Republican members in Illinois. Finally, I want to take you to a new AP North poll that takes a closer look at how people feel about the economy. Overall, the poll indicated that only 32% of U.S. adults thought the economy was good, though there's a pretty big party divide here. Now, zooming out for a second, that number is down from 38% who felt that way in August, but stays generally in the same range as the past year. Now, remember, the economy is always a top issue in elections. And that's a look at what is making news in politics this morning. Savannah?
All right, Megan, thank you so much. Well, there is a new scam that's popping up more and more in today's job market. It is more advanced than like maybe those fake recruiting texts that you get that pitch flexible jobs for a ton of money that sound too good to be true. Well, guess what? They are. Well, look at these new scams, though. They're a lot more legit. Experts say that makes them more dangerous. NBC News correspondent Shannon Pettypiece reports.
It started as any job search would, a posting on ZipRecruiter for a major bank, a LinkedIn application for a tech startup, an email from a recruiter about a top PR job. But on the other end, it's not employers, it's scammers. Job scam recruiting texts and fake job postings are on the rise, according to the Federal Trade Commission, targeting the millions of Americans hunting for work and taking advantage of a slowing job market.
Scams are always preying on the vulnerable, right? And I think people who are looking for work are vulnerable people in a way.
Timothy Brown encountered one of these scams on his job hunt.
I was certain that it was a real job when I first encountered it on a platform that I trust to be able to find jobs.
It's a new wave of scams, going beyond some of those poorly worded text messages you've probably received. Now, some fake listings are nearly indistinguishable from legitimate job postings, and they're popping up on trusted job hunting websites like ZipRecruiter and LinkedIn.
You cannot give these postings more credibility simply because they appear on a legitimate site. These sites are doing the best they can to vet and review these postings, but there isn't some threshold where they are reviewing every single one before it gets posted.
Brown says that trust made him more susceptible.
If you're on a dating app and you're meeting people, everybody's a little bit careful because they don't know the person you're communicating with. But when you're on LinkedIn, the trust level is so much higher to begin with.
And Brown isn't alone. In the first half of the year, online job scams rose 19% compared to a year earlier, costing Americans nearly $300 million, with a typical victim losing around $2,000, according to the FTC. In a statement, LinkedIn says it has systems in place to catch postings, but urged job seekers to be vigilant. ZipRecruiter said it also has a system for detecting job scams and takes down posts that violate its terms of use. Experts say job seekers should check with a company to make sure a job posting's legitimate if they're suspicious, and never give out sensitive information early in the interview process or deposit money into an account in order to get paid. Sagar Wagankar has been hunting for a job since getting laid off from the State Department in May. He realized a prospective job was likely a scam after they pressed him for sensitive information early in the interview process.
I was a little embarrassed when I first posted about this on LinkedIn, but the amount of support I got, it kind of validated that no, this is something that a lot of people are going through, a lot of very intelligent, experienced people.
It's hard to track who's behind the scams because bad actors mask their identity behind fake emails, phone numbers, and IP addresses. But cybersecurity experts think many are coming from the same criminal organizations in Southeast Asia that have been linked to other high-profile swindles in recent years, like romance scams on dating apps.
We have to be aware that there are people in this world that are happy to leverage that against us, and they will use your desperation, your hope, your fear of not having employment.
And a warning for the growing number of Americans struggling to find jobs.
All right, Shannon Pettypiece, thank you. Important information there. Well, coming up, we are talking turkey today on Morning News Now. We might be a little more than a month out from Thanksgiving, but that is not stopping many big retailers from dishing up big savings at the dinner table this year. So where can you get the most gobble for your green? We're going to crunch the numbers up next. We are back with some potentially welcome news as we gear up for the holiday season. Can you believe this? Thanksgiving less than 6 weeks away. That was a Some big name retailers are starting to roll out major deals for people who want to plan their festive dinners. There's also good news for travelers planning to make a road trip this year. We've got NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Roman.
Wait, can we have it again?
I know. Can we? You are ready for that. Oh my gosh. We bring out the big guns for you, Christine, the sound effects. Okay, so we are starting to see companies already announce the big deals that you can get. A big one here, people are always looking out for this one, Walmart, and this is actually cheaper than ever.
Yeah, this is the whole meal, the whole kit and caboodle. It is for 10 people, less than $4 a person.
Oh my.
This is the turkey. This is the stuffing. This is the pie. It's the fixings. It's the canned vegetables. It's the whole thing here. So you can see 20 plus items to choose from here. Cranberries, gravy mix, canned pumpkin. And that's pretty good.
So potatoes, like real potatoes.
Real
you're
potatoes.
Gonna make mashed potatoes.
Real potatoes.
It's
in there. So this is the cheapest one they've had since they started this Thanksgiving meal a few years ago. You know, we heard from Aldi's. They've got a really a compelling package as well. Haven't heard yet from Target, but if history is a guide, we will hear something. There's the Aldi one, 10 people. That's a lot cheaper than last year. And this is really addressing the inflation exhausted consumer. This is a marquee holiday. This is the meal is the star.
Right.
And this is sort of addressing really, I really think that the American consumer wants a good deal. So as prices have been rising overall, you're going to be able to find some deals over the holidays.
So generally then, I'm just saying $7 cheaper than last year. Wow, our grocery prices, is this reflective that grocery prices more broadly are coming down or not necessarily?
No. This is the zag and the zig. What's happening really is that grocery prices are rising, really 5-year highs for grocery prices. And when you look at things like milk and you look at turkey prices, wholesale turkey prices are rising here as well because of some, turkey flock issues. When you look at beef prices at record highs, coffee prices at record highs, people know. I mean, inflation over the past 5 years, your grocery bill over the past 5 years has gone up and up and up. This is why this discounting is so important for American consumers, to really be intentional about where you're shopping and what you're spending money on, because you can find those deals.
Right. Okay. And then I mentioned, if you're traveling, gas prices, good news here.
Yeah, gas prices have been going down. They're well below last year's level. When you look at Gas Buddy, that site says that you could see below $3 a gallon nationwide here for the first time, holding down there below $3 a gallon, maybe into the rest of the fall. Last night I noticed the AAA gas price actually ticked up 1 penny, so like to 3.04, 3.05. But you have parts of the country that have $2.99 gas, and Gas Buddy says you're going to see $2.80 range in that range later this year if all of this continues here. So that has been a good part of the inflation story, that gas prices and oil prices have been coming down.
Definitely. All right, Christine Romans.
Great to see you.
Happy Thanksgiving. Is it appropriate? I don't know. Yeah, there it is. What even is that? Is that a turkey? I don't know. All right, thank you all. Let's stay on your wallet. The company behind one wildly popular card game is now settling a legal tussle with SpaceX. NBC's Emily Lorstrand is live with that and other Money News. Hey, Emily, good morning.
Hey, Savannah, good morning. Cards Against Humanity has settled its lawsuit against Elon Musk's SpaceX. The adult party game company accused SpaceX of dumping materials onto land it bought to block President Trump's border wall. Cards Against Humanity says those who helped buy the land through its crowdfunding effort will get a new pack of Musk-themed cards. NBC News reached out to both parties and hasn't yet received a response. And Argentina's central bank says it signed a $20 billion currency swap deal with the U.S. just days before a key midterm election. The deal aims to stabilize Argentina's peso, which recently hit a record low and fell again despite the intervention. President Trump recently warned that the U.S. wouldn't, quote, waste our time with Argentina if President Milei's party loses the midterms. Finally, Open Evidence, an AI startup that has been called a ChatGPT for doctors, plans to announce it raised $200 million. That's according to the New York Times. The platform, which is free for verified medical professionals, uses top journals to help doctors diagnose patients faster. The new fund's making clear that investors see promise in specialized AI beyond everyday chatbots. And Savannah, I don't know when we will get to a place where we pretty much have ChatGPT for everything.
I know. I mean, a lot of people are using it for everything. It's very interesting to see. Emily, thank you so much.
Thanks.
We are lucky now to be joined by NBC Sports play-by-play commentator Mike Tirico. Talk about somebody who needs a calendar to keep track of what he's got going on. I mean, Mike, between NBA coming back, you're also calling Sunday Night Football, the rest of the NFL season, and then not to mention like everything we've got going on at NBC through the next year between Olympics, Super Bowl, World Cup. First, tell us, though, Mike, how excited are you about tonight's return of the NBA back home to NBC after 20 years?
Well, I'm just trying to keep up with Kaylee, Savannah, to be honest. I've got my kicks for the night. I've got my Jordans to wear tonight for opening night. Not as cool as what Kaylee had. But, boy, we're all excited as a company. It's been, as you said, 23 years since the NBA was last on NBC, and the league looks a little different. The game is played a little bit differently, more three-pointers than back in that era. But I think coming back to that familiar round ball rock, that John Tesh theme, some other Easter eggs, little surprises, if you will, that will lean back on that former era of the NBA. When I think a lot of the current players fell in love with the game, you talk to the guys who've been in the league for a bit about the NBA on NBC era, and they love it. And you got guys like Jaylen Brown and the Celtics and all the players who are out there now, Kevin Durant with Houston, who we will see tonight here in Oklahoma City. Exciting time for basketball, generations blend, a little nostalgia, and a little bit of what's cool with the kids, which is what we all try to strive for, I guess, at the end of the day.
There you go. And we're not going to let anybody forget that song. We are just going to keep playing it for you. I'm going to ask you about the games tonight in just a minute, but you mentioned kind of like some of these special things, Easter eggs kind of a thing. We got a sneak preview just yesterday of the role that Michael Jordan will play as a special contributor as part of this year's coverage on NBC. Tell us about that and maybe anything else that you can reveal that you're excited about.
Yeah, really enjoyed spending some time with Michael. He'll be a special contributor in our broadcast as we go throughout the entirety of the season. It won't just be a hit with him here this evening. And Michael's got such great insight on the game of basketball. And we've loved watching, I should say, him play over the years. And his imprint on the league is still there every time you look at the court, whether it's the shoes, the way the game is played, the entrepreneur that Michael was in the business world in addition to his basketball prowess. So a dip into all of that, into his mind as well as we talk basketball. That'll be a surprise during the year. You'll see him sprinkled throughout, but we'll have him as part of our opening night coverage with the doubleheader this evening, and looking forward to sharing that with so many folks. Anytime you can talk basketball with MJ, it's cool. We don't hear him all that often, and looking forward to that.
Yeah, Mike, I realize how cool your job is, right? That you just got to actually say the sentence. I've really enjoyed getting to spend some time with Michael Jordan.
Yeah. I do. I'm not cool, so I try to do cool things, Savannah.
Oh, please.
Just try to bridge the gap, and that was one of them for sure.
All right, let's talk about tonight's doubleheader. You are calling the first game. That's between defending champions, the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Houston Rockets. That's going to be followed, as we heard there from Kelly, by Golden State Warriors versus the Los Angeles Lakers. What should we expect from both games?
Well, I will start with the game we have here in Oklahoma City first. The biggest part of that, which is the fun for us, we get to do it with the NFL at the start of every season, is celebrate the last champions. The champions get the first game, and Oklahoma City gets that. So they'll get their championship rings. The banner will be unveiled in the arena. So it's a very festive atmosphere down here in Oklahoma for this day. So that'll be tonight. And Houston Rockets bring in Kevin Durant, as I said, who was a star when this franchise moved from Seattle to Oklahoma City. A lot of emotion there. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, MVP of the league for Oklahoma City. The Lakers and the Warriors, need you say more. Two of those great iconic brands and teams with Steph Curry still going strong. I saw him play Friday night in San Francisco. Looks as good as ever. And Luka Doncic begins his first full year with the Lakers. A great player who I think will continue the line of tradition with the Lakers, having a star player to build around. And, of course, LeBron James coming back later on in the year for them. So fun way to start the season, doubleheader for everybody across the country. And it starts every Tuesday night. There'll be an NBA game on NBC, and Peacock's got Mondays and Tuesdays, Sundays after we're done with football. So we are ready to get rolling.
Mike Tirico, you're getting us pumped up. Enjoy yourself tonight. So awesome. Thank you very much for spending a little time with us this morning.
Good to see you, Savannah. Have a great day.
You too, Mike. And you can catch the NBA tip-off doubleheader tonight starting at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. That is on NBC and on Peacock, and we won't let you forget it. Coming up, cultivating change in some of America's metro areas that need it most. When Morning News Now returns, how so-called microforests are slowly proving, to city dwellers that a tiny footprint can have a big impact even in the most urban environments. That's up next. Stay with us. We are back now with a look at a trending design that is bringing the benefits of forests right into the hearts of cities. NBC News correspondent Emily Aketa has more on the growth of so-called microforests.
Hey there, a microforest is exactly what it sounds like. A tiny forest as small as 10 square feet. And while the concept has been around for decades, it's growing increasingly popular as a way to improve biodiversity and fight climate change here in the States, especially amid expanding urban areas and industrial hubs. It's pretty thick in here. How many plant species do you have?
We have about 20 different plant species and about 270 plants in here.
Walking through these woods in North Jersey, we found strawberry bushes, locust trees, and willow oaks.
This is about 15 to 20 feet.
But after just a few paces, then you see the cutoff point. Pretty abrupt.
That's it.
That's because this 45 by 40 foot plot is a microforest sprouted by the nonprofit Groundwork Elizabeth and John Evangelista.
When we first came and we're like, oh, we want to build a forest in the middle of a city, everybody was like, what are you talking about?
That seemingly far-fetched idea was actually rooted in research. Now known as the Miyawaki method, Japanese botanist Dr. Akira Miyawaki demonstrated how densely planting native trees on small degraded plots of land encourages them to compete for resources and thus grow more rapidly, reaching a fully mature, self-sustaining status within 20 to 30 years compared to what normally takes up to a century. Watch as this microforest transforms in just 5 years. Are you surprised by the success of this microforest in such a short amount of time?
I am absolutely blown away by the success and by the additional benefits. It's sequestering carbon, it's producing oxygen, it's extremely biodiverse. As you could tell today, there's bugs all over the place in here, and you hear different types of birds, and you don't normally get that in the inner cities.
Thermal imaging seen here by drone demonstrates the impact of microforests on temperature, an average of about 80 degrees in the woods versus a blistering 125 degrees in a nearby parking lot. And for a major industrial hub with a lot of pavement, the benefits bloom beyond there.
This method has been practiced since the 1970s, but it's increasingly getting used in urban areas.
Dr. Daniela Shebitz and her students at Kane University have been studying the progress.
We're seeing soil permeability that increases by 50% under the microforest. That allows that stormwater to be absorbed. In so many places that flood, the water will now have somewhere to go.
That played a major role in planting now 3 microforests in Elizabeth, New Jersey, prone to flooding. Earth Economics found this location alone will produce nearly $36,000 in annual benefits, such as reducing heat-related illness and water treatment costs. And helping to keep these pops of green alive, this group part of a paid city youth program.
It definitely inspired me to pursue the career I'm pursuing now, which is I'm majoring in environmental science. So this is really going into my passion even more.
Do you feel like you're making a difference in your hometown where you grew up?
100%, and these are permanent changes.
There are more than 3,000 Miyawaki-inspired forests around the world, from one of the oldest examples in Japan to the UK to India. And the concept is sprouting up in popularity in the U.S. too.
Do you think this is just the beginning? Oh, I know this is just the beginning. And it really doesn't take a lot of scientific knowledge. It doesn't take a lot of money. What it takes is a community getting together to try to make a difference and to try to reclaim some of their land.
As these tiny efforts are showing a big impact. You can plant a microforest almost anywhere, including sites as small as 10 square feet. The keys are to identify a variety of native plants, use nutrient-dense soil, and apply a mulch to retain moisture. Back to you.
Well, I've been to one here in New York, Em. It's super cool. Thank you so much. Well, that's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now. Stay with us, though. The news continues right now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.